last time we talked about our trip to Maui, and this time we went to the other ocean, went to the Gulf side of Florida, and stayed at Fort Myers Beach. We spent 4 weeks down there. So here's what I'd like to share with you. First of all, Fort Myers Beach is actually on an island, Estero Island, and it's the southwest coast of Florida in the Gulf. They advertise sugar white sand beaches and shelling and beautiful sunsets, and they have all that. And we enjoyed the 4 weeks we were there. And just to give you an idea, this is, you can see Fort Myers with a pin in the middle, Fort Myers Beach rather. Just north of that is actually just north of it is San Carlos Island. And then beyond that is Fort Myers. We spent some time in Fort Myers Beach. We also went over to Sanibel Island, which is to the left or to the west there. And we also drove down the length of Estero Island, which is about 7 miles long, went across Black Island and down to Big Hickory Island and Little Hickory Island, and stopped at it's Lover's Key State Park down there. So, but this gives you an idea of it's a barrier island. Fort Myers Beach itself, or Estero Island itself, is 7 miles. And then, of course, there's additional, if you go through Black Island and Big Hickory and all. First thing that greeted us were these birds. Anybody know what they are?
Are they ibis?
They are ibis. And we learned very quickly when we were down there that if they have a curved bill, it's an ibis. If it has a straight bill, it's an egret. And so we ran into a number of ibis and egret down there. They're both, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of birds down there. We were at a time, I don't know if it's normal or not. We were there in February, and the birds were migrating. By the way, I should stop and say, sitting next to me is my wife, Joan, and she did come with me, and I'm going to invite her to jump in anytime she wants to jump in and say something. We stayed at the Diamond Head Beach Resort, and there are probably 4 or 5 tall beach resorts along Estero Island, and 2 of them are probably the best of the bunch. Diamond Head is one, and the Pink Shell Resort is the other one. So this is what it looks like. This is one side. This is the beach side of the resort. And you'll notice all the blue umbrellas. When you stay there, you can reserve a blue umbrella without charge. Other people have to come in and pay for it. But it's a beautiful area. On the other side is Estero Boulevard. And I'm going to kill the sound for just a second. Well, I won't do that. I'll just let it play out. Notice all the line of cars. And the sunset. Estero Boulevard, probably at least 50 to 60% of the day is packed like that. It's 1 lane each way, and that's one of the negatives about Fort Myers Beach. But it, if you're going to drive around during much of the day, you're going to have to plan on spending a lot of time in very slow-moving traffic. The Diamond Head Resort provides free bicycles to people who stay there, and you'll see other resorts do. And of course, there's always the option to walk, and there's also a trolley that goes up and down. And there's a free one and there's a paid one. The paid one goes further. The free one only goes so far down Estero island.
You can actually walk faster than the trolley.
Yes.
Because of the traffic. So we
were
did
coming,
a lot of walking.
Yeah, we came back one night from being over in Fort Myers, and we kept watching these people who were walking the same direction we were, and we get ahead of them and they'd catch up. We'd get ahead of them and they'd catch up. You know, so it literally was just as fast to walk. This is the view out of our resort window. There's a common room, or like a living room, dining room area, and then there's a bedroom. And this balcony runs the length of both.
And a kitchenette. So
yes, there's a kitchenette
there. There's a lot of food, a lot of restaurants, but you don't want to be eating that all the time. So it's nice to have your kitchen refrigerator. So
right. And there's the little kitchenette. And you can see it's got a dishwasher, it's got a refrigerator, it's got a microwave, coffee maker, and I think that's a blender. I don't think we ever used a blender, but
nope.
So we should have, but we didn't. And looking out one direction, away from the Gulf, this is the view. And if you look off to the left, you can sort of see a bridge, a cement bridge that goes from Estero Island over to, I'm always losing the name of it, San Carlos Island. San Carlos Island is just a small island in the middle, and there are some commercial locations there and some housing, but we were primarily on Estero Island. And the canals are quite beautiful. We did walk from the Diamond Head Beach Resort on over to that bridge, but we're walkers, and so we enjoyed walking up there. And but there are all sorts of things that you can rent right from the hotel, yeah, from the resort. Again, the chair and umbrella rentals are free for people who are staying at the resort. But you can get kayaks and sailing and fishing charters and dolphin tours and paddle boats, and a lot of people use the wave runners. In fact, every morning about 9 o'clock, you'd see a group of people go take the wave runners down to Lover's Key Park, because that's where there's a good chance of seeing dolphins and manatees. And of course, one of our first stops was the Royal Scoop, which was really kind of across the street and kitty corner from the resort. And here's lunch one day.
It was literally lunch.
And here's lunch another day. So we, if you're up on that bridge I was talking about and look down, you can see this is the Estero Bay that runs between Estero Island and the San Carlos Island. And you can see some of the boats and all. And I just decided to take a picture straight down from the top of that bridge. And that's what it looks like. So it's very scenic, lots of places to walk, lots of places to eat, very enjoyable. There's a fishing pier that's was really not that far. I don't know if we measured I think it was less than a mile, wasn't it?
Oh, I was thinking it was 2 miles that way.
Well, that's all the way down to the end of the beach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think it was just under a mile down to the pier. There's a park at the very end, the point of Estero Island, and it was 2 miles down there and 2 miles back. So we got some nice little walks of that. But this fishing pier, you can go out on it and you'll see people out there fishing, and you'll also find the pelicans. They're always waiting around for someone who catches something and slips up and drops it. Right at the base where the pier comes in to hit the island is this, what they call Times Square. And I don't know if you can see, this is my shirt from Times Square. They have lots of shirts around. By the way, this says on it that I'm part of I'm an off-duty lifeguard And the bottom of it, which you probably can't see, says save yourself. So
Off duty, save yourself.
yeah, off duty, lifeguard, save yourself. Well, since I can't swim, it was a good shirt for me to wear. They also had live music here, at least on the weekends and some days, weekdays. So there's ice cream shops there. There are t-shirt shops, a lot of souvenir shops, a lot of stuff going on at Times Square. And here's a view from the pier, partway out the pier, looking back at some of the shops there. There's, again, there are ice cream shops. There's a Dairy Queen there. There are other food restaurants all up and down that area. This is looking back toward our resort, the Diamond Head, which is on the left-hand side, the tannish gray one. And you'll see this red tide algae all the way along. In June, they say it gets really pretty bad. I didn't notice anybody having any problems with it at this point in time. They just step over it, walk through it, and people just enjoying swimming, sunbathing, etc. We were not there when there was any professional sand carving, but we did find a few amateur sand carving attempts. One here, this one I thought was kind of interesting. Those are all shells on there. They're not stones, they're shells. And this is the most professional looking guy. He had a bucket out, and if you wanted to take a picture, he was more than happy to take $1 or $2 from you. But he made a very beautiful castle, and it stayed up there for at least a week or so afterwards. And here's more of an amateur castle, and an even more amateur castle. And this is one of my favorites. And so I took a closer up shot of it to show you. But I thought it was kind of a clever sand sculpture. There's, like I said, there are 4 or 5 basically high-rise resorts along the island. And the one with the pots in the middle there is Casa Playa, a beach resort. And our resort was further on down. If you look to the right inside, you can see there's the pier, the fishing pier, and we were way on the other side. But we walk down this way each day and go all the way to the tip of Estero Island. And this is the Pink Shell Beach Resort. It's the other biggie on island. It and the Diamond Head both offer cruises and all sorts of marina kinds of activities, wave runners and all that sort of thing. And just to prove that we had some cool days, when we first got down there, it was actually warmer here in Kansas than it was down there. It was in the 60s down there. And so the first couple of days we were wondering, why did we pay all this money to come down here?
Yeah.
But
then it got hot.
Yes, then
Very.
It got hot. Then it got up into the 80s. We were there when they had below average temperatures and above average temperatures. So we had a little bit of both. But it's beautiful, as you can tell from the sky and the umbrellas and the ocean beyond. It really is a beautiful area. That sand is very, very, very fine and very white. We did have a day or two when the fog moved in, and it burns off. It burns off fast. So we woke up in the morning, it looked like this, and within an hour or two, it was pretty well clear. This is part of the path. We would make a path. Either we would head north to the tip of Estero Island on our daily walk, or we'd head south and go down to Publix. And so we never really used our car, I don't think, to drive down there to get groceries. We just grabbed some stuff and walked back a little bit at a time. So it was about a little over 2 miles this way and a little over 2 miles the other way. So we got a 4-mile walk in each day. And the clouds are absolutely beautiful. The area, the ocean, the clouds are just gorgeous.
Over there, sandpipers. So cute.
Those are actually sandlings, and they look like sandpipers, but they're actually sandlings. And we would see flocks of them as we walked along, heading either direction. We'd see just literally hundreds of them. You see a lot of pelicans, you see a lot of sanderlings, you see sandpipers, you see gulls. There are a few wall paintings, murals, and so I took a picture of a couple of them. I thought this was interesting. After we left, I read, there's a Facebook group for Fort Myers Beach, and after we left, I read that a green turtle, a mother green turtle, had come up here and laid her eggs in the sand right around this mural. So I guess you might have liked the view or something. We saw these and wondered, what the heck are they? And what they end up being is they're lightning whelk seed pods. And you see them, at first we saw just one here and one there, I mean, every few days, and then we started seeing more of them. But they actually are, they've actually broken loose from a rock or something out in the ocean. And they, inside are little tiny lightning whelk. They look like a conch, but they're a little bit different. In fact,
Like a little baby shell.
yeah,
Just hundreds of them.
I don't know if you can see that, but that's a lightning whelk shell, and they come to a sharp point, which is, I think, why they call them a lightning whelk. And of course, we went shelling and found several.
There's thousands of shells
Yeah.
on the beach, just everywhere. It's
Right.
amazing.
But I was going to bring one of these home, and my wife convinced me that maybe I didn't want to really do that. So, but they are quite unique. I'd never seen anything like that until we were down there at Fort Myers Beach. And this is something I didn't try to bring home. This is called sea pork, and because it looks like pork, but it's actually a microscopic colony of little creatures, and they filter out food and debris out of the ocean, and then they throw out just the clean water. So they eat whatever material they gather in. And here's another example of them. Every little while we'd see one. They often are just floating in. You see them just come into shore like so. You asked a naturalist that, well, if you see one on the beach and it's still pretty moist, just throw it back in, because it may survive, that way. But some of the ones we saw were pretty tied up by the time they got on the beach. And we did run across this one jellyfish that had died on the beach. So you find all sorts of interesting things as you wander along. And some coral. And this fellow's kind of interesting. We didn't see many of them, but every once in a while we'd find a king crab like this. And if you look on his back, he's got a hole. And so some seagull has gone after him, and he's basically dead, but he's been eaten by the seagull. These are alive, though. We passed a gentleman who had found a couple little starfish in the water, and he showed us, and I took a picture, and then of course he put them back in because they were alive. They have rules, regulations, laws that basically don't allow you to take live sea creatures out of the water to dry them up and kill them. Basically, you're supposed to put them back in. And I also found some other interesting debris along the way. This is that red tide algae, and some days it's thicker like this, and some days it's very, very thin. And it's, as I understand it, fairly harmless unless it unless you're there in certain seasons where it gets pretty thick. This, as you walk along on our beach walks, we'd see these groups of what almost look like little pebbles coming in out of the ocean. But if you go close, you see that they're just hundreds and thousands of little tiny seashells. Among those, you can find some bigger ones, but there's an awful lot of little tiny seashells, which eventually get ground up and become beach sand, I believe. This is a royal tern. I don't know a lot about birds, but I did get a little Florida bird guide because I wanted to be able to identify some of them. And they've actually had little areas, natural areas where you've got water, you've got the beach, you've got water, and then you've got another little bit of beach. And they put up signs for people not to go on that area where the birds are, the migratory birds are staying, because it gives them a chance to rest on their long journey wherever they're headed to. But lots and lots of birds. There's another royal tern. This post we'd walk by at low tide and it's completely out of the water, and at high tide it would be completely in the water. Any questions so far? I'll keep going unless you have a question. Please don't hesitate to ask if you have a question. Bowditch Point Park is the one that's the furthest north on Estero Island. This is a little park that we would walk up to each day. As you can sort of tell, the water comes up to the rocks there. At high tide, it comes up to the rocks, and they don't want you climbing over the rocks, as evidenced by this sign. So they have a walkway, they have a boardwalk that you can take over to the park. But at low tide, this is the same area. At low tide, you can literally walk around those rocks and come all the way over to the park. And a lot of driftwood debris. At low tide, we came across these little mounds, and I wasn't sure what they were. And I didn't find out till we got home here that they're actually lugworm casts. And a lugworm goes through and kind of like the sea pork, it finds debris and eats what it finds in the sand. And if you look at, it actually comes up like a little squirrel, and that's where the lugworm has actually gone into the sand. And you can see on some of these, like at the very top, there's a little indentation. The lugworm makes a U-shaped tunnel, and the little pile, or cast they call them, is where it went in. And of course it filters the sand, and it goes through its body and makes the little pile. And where it's comes out would be over where the indentation is. It may very well be down under because it's sucking stuff in and through and leaving that indentation while it's under the sand. And here's another, you can see the indentations here a little bit more, a little clearer. And this one, you can see quite a fancy little cast there. On that boat would be on the shore if it were low tide. At high tide, of course, it's out in the water, and it's stationed there. At least several days we went by, it was always there. And of course, we have a great heron on the left-hand side. We didn't worry about shuffling our feet because the stingrays are out of season. But if you're there May through October, you do need to be careful and shuffle your feet as you walk along in the water along the beach. There are several places, little parks or preserves like the Matanzas Pass Preserve. And it basically is a little walkway. We enjoy walking, and so we would hit every trail we could find. But it takes you through these cypress groves. And there's a boardwalk in the deeper part, and then there are also dirt trails at other locations throughout. And it talks about the red, white, and black mangrove. The red mangroves are the ones, evidently, if I understand right, that have the roots up on top above the surface, like so. And they evidently provide shelter for small animals, and when they're in the water, when they're at the water for fish and other sea life. You can see their roots are pretty tangled and pretty thick. We took a couple cruises. We wanted to go a dolphin on a dolphin cruise or tour, and the copacetic is a sailing. It's a catamaran, and so we went there. Unfortunately, we saw one dolphin on that trip. It's a little bit unlike Maui, where you can see dozens of whales or several dolphins at one time. We saw one dolphin on this particular cruise. And so I thought I'd give you a little meditation here after I show you. This is where we checked in to go on the catamaran. And there were these brown pelicans, and there's a wife and some white pelicans in the background, as well as the brown ones up on the beams. And I just want you to notice when I show you the little video here, I think you'll see the bridge. That bridge takes you over to Sanibel Island, and then beyond that to Captiva. And you can see there are a lot of resorts along the way. They're not on Estero Island. They're in Fort Myers, I believe. And you'll also see this structure, which is the Sanibel Island Lighthouse. The disappointment was that we didn't see more than one dolphin, but it really was a beautiful afternoon just to go sailing. And you probably spotted the lighthouse in the one picture, and then the bridge that goes from over to Sanibel Island. So it was just a very enjoyable, leisurely cruise. On the way back, when we came into the dock, we saw all these pelicans. The white ones are obviously white pelicans, and the brown are brown pelicans. They're fed at least once a day. I mean, there are people on the boats there feed them, and this is the chaos that ensued. And they're quite fascinating creatures. I mean, they're also very hungry, I guess. Well, when we were done cruising, touring, one of the places we like to go was called the Dog House. And it's a little restaurant on Estero Boulevard. It's kind of across and down several blocks from the Diamond Head Resort. And I just got this burger. It's 2 patties. It's got bacon in there. You've got French fries in there. All you have to do is add the ketchup, and it's
Yeah, that's why we walk a lot.
yeah. I think we even shared this one.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And the other thing on the menu that I really enjoyed was they have this hot dog with pulled pork and then coleslaw, and then obviously fries too. So you almost don't know you're eating a hot dog because there's so much stuff on top of it. But it was very good too.
Yeah.
And they have these little signs all the way around the building, the doghouse building. And I just thought they were very, very clever. I don't like this. How come people who think they know everything never seem to know when to shut up? Sounds like me. And there's the t-shirt. There's a better view of the t-shirt I'm wearing right now. So, and that's in the living room of the Diamond Head Resort. That was our room. Back behind the door, or through the door, there is the bedroom. And then to the right a little bit and back is a walk-in shower and, bathroom and all that sort of thing. So, and another view, kind of a panoramic view of the island from our balcony. And one of the things that I really enjoyed were all the sunsets. Just beautiful sunsets all the way through. Another place we went was Mom's, and they are known for their cinnamon rolls as well as their biscuits and gravy. And if you like biscuits and gravy, take a friend, because their helpings are extremely large. And I never had problems with Mom, but my understanding is from some of the islanders is you better know what you want when you get in there, because it's a very small,
busy.
It's very busy, very small place, and Mom has very little patience with people who don't know what they want to order.
And the line gets very long, very fast. Yeah.
Off to the right of this are additional tables. It's not just the one table. There are more places, but there are not a lot of them, but there are a fair number.
Mm.
And another wall mural. I just enjoy wall murals, so I throw them in every once in a while. Some of the buildings, some of the little businesses have these on their walls. And then we did go into Fort Myers for a number of things. We actually went to Broadway Palm and saw Singing in the Rain, which is really an excellent production. And then we hit some antique shops, and some of the boat charters we took were from, in fact, the ones we just told you about, the catamaran. It was actually in Fort Myers, as well as the Edison-Ford Winter Estates and more. Here's we didn't buy anything at this place. Their stuff was fairly pricey, but they had some really interesting things. If you look hard, you can see that that's a motorcycle made out of bones, skulls, and other bones. And Joanne wouldn't let me get it. So, and they have some full-size characters too that were also fairly expensive, but really just kind of fun to walk through and see what all they had. And then we went to the Edison-Ford Museum, which is in Fort Myers. And these are actually the winter estates of those two gentlemen, and with 20 acres of botanical gardens. One of the things that that they tried to do was to find a substitute for rubber, because it was getting increasingly hard in the 1920s and 30s to import what was needed. And so they thought they would find a plant that would produce them. And by the time they got around to discovering something, I think the synthetics came into the picture. But the Edison-Ford Museum, there are both audio and guided tours that you can get to. They're offered free daily. Now, admission to the place, it does cost to enter in. If you're a member, there is a limited in-house tours are offered, where you actually get to go into the homes. To be honest, we joined just so we could get the in-house tour, and we ended up having to wait a week or two to be able to get into the in-house tours because they are so booked up. So we went once and did kind of the external guided tours and the audio tours, and then we went a second time to do the in-house. And this gives you somewhat of an idea. Starting on the right is you'll see parking, and that's where we entered. And you go by a little Banyan Cafe and the lab, and then you get to the Estates Museum, and that's where the first pictures will be in that museum. And across the street, across McGregor Boulevard, you'll find Edison's caretaker's house. You'll find Edison's office, and you'll find the Edison home and the Edison guest house, and then further down the Ford home. Now, Ford bought the house after several other people owned it. Actually, it was owned by a business associate, I think, of Edison. They had a falling out, and so eventually Ford bought into it. And but he never, after Edison died, he never went back. He never went back there. And there's also a garage that has a car exhibit in it. So let's take a little tour here. First of all, as you enter from that direction, and to be honest, I can't tell you if it's north, south, east, or west. I've lost track. But they have the third largest banyan tree in the world. The first is in Asia. The second one is in Lahaina, Maui. And the third is this one at the Estates, the Edison-Ford Estates. It was planted in 1927. And again, it was part of that experiment to see if they could find a tree or a plant that would generate enough sap of a variety that could be a substitute for rubber. This gives you an indication of the size of it, and you're not even seeing it all the way to the top. But there you can see the statue. Here are two human beings next to the sculpture, and here's just the sculpture. So you can see it's a pretty mammoth banyan tree. In the museum itself, you have lots and lots of cars. They're just quite beautiful. I'm not an auto enthusiast. I don't know a lot about cars, but I just thought they were very beautiful, very, very beautiful to look at. And Edison made this comment I thought was interesting. I'm always afraid of things that work the first time. When I made my first recording on the photograph, shouting in it, "Mary had a little lamb with fleeces white as snow," and it reproduced perfectly, I was never so taken back in my life. And that was in July 1920 is his quote from. Throughout the museum, there are all sorts of relics and artifacts from Edison and Ford. And we were there at a point where there was a woman who came through and gave this little demo.
15 years old, right? And you know how you have a label on an album? Well, this is where they put the information about what was on this cylinder. The name of the musicians and what song you're listening to. Oh, and since you didn't see this before, some of you already saw this. This is the volume control. Put a sock in it.
That's nice. Easy.
Okay.
That is so cool.
Hope you enjoyed.
So that's where I guess the expression "put a sock in it" came from. Also in there, went to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Edison's first incandescent bulb. GE built, that was in 1929, built this 50,000 watt bulb. And then for the 75th anniversary, they built a 75,000 watt bulb. I don't think these had practical applications. I think they were just simply to celebrate the anniversary, but they're humongous and they're beautiful. There's one of my favorite vehicles is a 1914 Model T. It has an air-powered calliope in it, as you can tell towards the back. And it just simply, the gentleman adapted the Model T to include the calliope.
It sounded wonderful.
Yeah. They played it a little bit for us too. And again, I don't know a lot about cars, but when I tell my grandsons who are into cars about this V8 flathead for the Ford 1937, they're impressed by that being produced in 1937. And outside of the museum are gardens. There are flowers and plants and things for sale, but there's also just some beautiful hedges of color. This is Edison's caretaker's house. And if you go inside, I don't know if this was a permanent exhibit or not. I think it may have been just a temporary. They had works by different artists in there, like the mobile and then the lithograph or painting. And throughout they have these sayings, and I like this one: sunshine is a form of energy, and the winds and tides are manifestations of energy. Do we use them? Oh no, we burn up wood and coal as renters burn up the front fence for fuel. We live like squatters, not as if we own the property. And Edison has a lot of great quotes throughout. I just used the one. This is the lamp that my wife wanted to buy, made out of an old railroad car, toy railroad car. And unfortunately, they wouldn't sell it to us. So. And then Edison's study is the little building here. Now he actually had, starting at 1886, an electric laboratory that was his study, and it was moved to Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan. So they built this for him when they moved that. So it was built in 1928 when they moved the other laboratory out. And it's you can look inside, and it has again a lot of artifacts, beautiful furniture, and that moon pool, as it's called. This is taken from the house, from the study, looking away from it. And it's a nice little pond. And on the walkway down towards the homes, you see the Edison-Ford Winter homes. The first building is the Edison home. The second gray one is the guest house, and you can't really see the Ford Winter home from here. One thing you'll notice as you go through, that I noticed, is that the Edison homes were quite big, and the Ford home, although it's beautifully furnished, was quite a bit more modest. And again, we were able to take the in-house tour and take pictures from inside of the different artifacts, pictures. And it really is a beautiful area. There were stories with much of this, and I couldn't even repeat them. There was so much information that was given. And off to the right there, you see the woman in blue. She she didn't get to look in the house. She had to look from the outside. So. Just outside the home, there's a series of stone paths that have been donated to Mrs. Edison or to Thomas Edison. And many of them have worn so thin that you can't read the inscription. Some have been damaged in weather and cyclones and that sort of thing. And of course, all throughout the grounds, remember it's a botanical garden too, so there are lots of flowers. Here's another photo from the inside, the grand piano. And what you can't see clearly from this end of the dinner table is there's a gong on the other end that Edison would use to summon guests, and there it is. They'd use that to say it's time for dinner, or to summon people who served as servants. This is Ford, and his statue is between the Edison guest house and the Ford winter home. And there's a Ford caretaker's cottage that has cars and other items in it. And this, I thought that was interesting. This is a 1921 Model T that the chassis was converted into a truck. And here's the Ford historic home. They called it the Mangoes. And you can see it's not small, but it's not quite as large as the Edison homes. Here are some of the photos from inside.
Well, it's beautiful. Yeah.
There are lots of knickknacks and furniture in there I'd love to abscond with, but they would notice me. There's also up closer on the other side of the street, closer to where we entered, is the laboratory. And they went through 17,000 plant samples trying to find a rubber source. And Edison and Ford and Firestone formed this Edison Botanical Research Corporation, EBRC, and built this laboratory to do their experiments. And I just love the looks of all the beakers and the test tubes, and don't ask me why. I just thought it was quite a grand looking building on the inside. They didn't let us take samples though. And outside, also as you enter, before you get to the banyan trees, is kapok tree. And it's, again, it was one of the ones that they were testing to see if maybe they could develop a synthetic or rubber kind of product. And it has a label that it's the tallest tree in the Amazon rainforest, and has seed pods that produce this silk-like fibers. And they used it for life jackets because it was waterproof and it would float easy in the 20th century. More recently, it's used for fibers inside pillows and things of that sort. But what I really love about it, what's fascinating, are the spikes on the outside of it. So I got a closer picture of it for you. So they figure the spikes are to deter animals, from climbing and disrupting the tree. And then we went to the Naples Botanical Gardens. They have a number of gardens in there. Asian, Caribbean, Water Garden, the Brazilian Uplands Trail, Southwetlands, Florida Garden, Succulent, and the Orchid Garden. And there's even more beyond that. So they have walkways through certain areas where it's densely filled with trees and plants. They tell you not to pet the alligators. And what I found interesting is you can take your smartphone, take a picture with your camera of the little QR code there, and then listen to a recording. They would have these stops all throughout the botanical gardens, and so you learn more about what you were looking at. A lot of it looks like jungle until you listen to this and realize what its function is in the overall ecological scheme of things. And you've got tall, scrawny pines, and you've got flowers, and you've got eggplants. And of course, depending on the season, you've got all sorts of different flowering fruits and succulents, cacti. And this picture doesn't really do that arch justice, but it's really quite beautiful. Now, one of my favorites was this stick work. It's actually called Sea Change by the artist. And he used 3,000 pounds of willow and in 17 days with a crew of local volunteers to create this sea change sculpture out of willow. And just to give you a size of it, there's Joan. And getting a little closer in, you can see it's quite a construction project.
It was magnificent. It was so beautiful.
And there I am. I'm 6 foot tall, so that gives you some sense of the height of the thing. And then there are other Caribbean gardens throughout. And the water gardens, the Asian gardens. And there's an area where there's a man-made waterfall and it's in a pool or pond area with all sorts of different kinds of lilies, flowering lily pads. On the way out, we ran across this tree, and it's hard to get the tree and get a close-up of these, but these leaves or flowers fall and they literally look like little flames, and it's called the flame of the forest. And here's the orchid, the wall of orchids. And it just shows you just part of it, but it's quite beautiful too. Then we went on to the Naples Zoo. By the way, Naples Zoo and the Botanical Gardens are probably an hour and a half drive away from Fort Myers Beach. So they're not adjacent. It takes a little while to get there. And the zoo is 44 acres. They had this Lego sculptures, series of Lego sculptures throughout. Here's a big spider. The one on the right is the spider. And then a scorpion. And here's kind of a map where you can see Alligator Bay and the primate. One thing I didn't include in this is I did shoot some video of a little program. They have a little, I can't even think of what it's called. It may be on here somewhere, but there's a little forum where you can go and sit and see animal shows. And what's interesting is that they try very hard to have their shows be entertaining for the people, but also be instructive for the animals. So they talk about having markers and training them so that the animals will do certain things, so they can be given the shots when needed, when be fed properly, all this sort of thing. So it's not just a circus show. They really are trying to make it appropriate for the animals and for their welfare. There's a alligator, and behind it you can probably see the heron, the great heron, on the log. And turtles. We actually saw one of the box turtles out on one of our walks, and in the wild, and they were talking about how they dig. It's actually, I guess, it's actually called a burrowing turtle. Because it actually builds a hole, digs a hole, and lives there. We watched one walking across in front of us and then go down into a hole. And they have a boat ride, and those islands, some are monkey islands. They have different varieties of monkeys and other creatures out there, so you can see them from the water. It's very, very pleasant. Again, this is a botanical garden also. It has a lot of walkways through forested areas. And they had this giraffe feeding time. And so here's a
18 inches. Woo! You know why it's that color? So it doesn't get tumbled. Oh. There you go. I just did videos. I didn't get any pictures. But you
sanitize his hands? Oh, yeah. Okay. One piece at a time?
all settled? All set. Thank you.
I'll tell you something about this little fella. At the very end of this clip, you'll see him stand up on all four legs and kind of run off to the side. And the video I really wanted to catch was after he went to the side, this little girl came along and started trying to catch him. And so he ran down the middle of this walkway on all fours as fast as he could. Now, she couldn't catch him because he goes like fast. And I wish I'd left my camera on just another minute or so and I would have caught that. But we saw a few iguanas, but that guy came out to investigate all of us. There was a question about from Elizabeth about, do the alligators walk on the paths where people walk? No, they're behind barriers. Now, in some of the areas, some like Matanzas and some of the other areas, when you go into like Lover's Key, they do warn you about alligators, and they are not behind barriers, not like they are in the zoo. So you do need to be cautious and aware. We never saw one in the wild that I can think of.
No,
I think we
it's
saw
just a
them.
lot of signs.
Yeah, a lot of signs warning us, but we never saw one in the wild. And here's another one of their little Lego constructions. And this one is one of our favorites. And just to give you an idea, it took them 147 hours to build it, 3 different builders and almost 40,000 Lego bricks. So they're not as easy to build as you'd think. And this guy was not in a cage. He was wandering around, kind of like the iguana. He was going his own way. And this guy also was wandering around on his own. The guy on the right I'm talking about. Lover's Key State Park is at the south end of or below Estero Island. It's one of those other islands I showed you at the very beginning. And it has hiking, biking trails, kayak tours. And by the way, we're not talking about money on any of these, but most of them required some kind of admission price. Edison-Ford did, the Lover's Key State Park did, but there are some free hiking paths also in other locations. This is a fishing dock. We didn't want to disturb the fishermen, but behind the cameraman, there were 2 or 3 folks fishing off this dock. But we wanted to just get a picture of the general area. There's Lover's Key also has a beach, and they have typically a food truck there. It's a nice place to go, and if your resort doesn't have public access, then this is one of the places that people will go. I sent this to my daughters and said, Joan wouldn't let me go beyond that point. I don't know why, but she wouldn't let me go further. And we saw these osprey nests, several all over the place. This is at Lover's Key, but the osprey, they do their best to kind of protect them. And you'll actually see street lights that have a flat platform on the top where osprey have built their stick nests. Are feeding the young. There obviously is a young one in there that you can't quite see, but they're feeding the young. The naturalist told us that they always leave one parent on the nest, because if they don't, then the bald eagles in the area will come in and eat the babies or eat the eggs. The other cruise we went to was a dolphin shelling cruise, and it was on Estero Island. I talked about how we would walk down to the Publix grocery store. Behind it was this location with good time charters, and that blue canopied, I don't know, I guess you call it a pontoon boat maybe, behind Joan is the one we went out on. And
Yeah. So they caught a puffer fish. So I'm gonna pull them out of the water just to see if they'll puff up, so you can see. You know, so you can see how it's like puffed up. Doesn't stay puffed very long. But when they get scared, they'll either swallow a bunch of air if you lift them out, or underwater they'll swallow a bunch of water. And if you eat our local shrimp, this is the species they're eating. And so pufferfish have it's kind of like a meat for teeth.
we were on this dolphin shelling tour cruise, and they saw some friends that they knew, and they came up and handed them this bucket because they knew the us tourists might like to see the pufferfish and the shrimp, and so that's how we ended up seeing them. And afterwards, they released them back into Estero Bay, but it was kind of interesting and kind of fun to see the pufferfish actually in action and see the large shrimp there. When we were out shelling, the guide, our naturalist, found a sea urchin and showed us that. And they evidently use a lot of these seashells. They'll cling to them and use them as kind of camouflage. I'm going to go back on this one. Before I play this one, the next one, I want to tell you to look off to the left-hand side of the boat, and you'll see what's following in the wake of our boat. So we did see a few more dolphins there than we did on the first cruise. We also went to the Bailey Matthews National Shell Museum, and I see we're running out of time, so I'm going to move along quickly on this. I just like those relief sculptures on the outside of the building. And this is one of my favorite quotes: "The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it." They had just tons of exhibits inside, including the lightning whelk, which is at the top. That's the one for the sea casing that I talked to you about earlier, as well as the crown conch. And the conch has been used for, I guess, centuries for some of the fine art sculpture, you know. One second. And so I just enjoyed those. Here are some scallops, and you can see they come in many, many different colors. Here's one that I found on our shelling thing that I thought was kind of pretty, muted browns, but still very pretty.
He is the strangest little creature.
Yeah, he's got a strong toxin, so if anybody bites him.
I don't know if you could hear us, but it's It's a flamboyant cuttle, and it if another fish tries to bite it, it has a poison toxin in its skin, and it will kill or deter the other fish. This little creature was in that shell museum, and it's just they actually had some live sea slugs, some conch shells, some lightning whelk that were in water, salt water, that you could actually reach in and touch and feel. So it's an educational site, but it has a lot of displays too, and very hands-on kinds of things. Okay, by the way, you've just sat through almost 200 slides, so thank you for your patience. Here are some of the sunsets that I took pictures of. There's the fishing up here, which makes an excellent backdrop for a lot of these photos. And this goes on silently, so if you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and just ask them.
That's so pretty.
That's not, is it loading?
Okay.
It might be calling the day, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I think so.
The sun is setting.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Pretty.
Are you seeing them, or are you just seeing a spinning star?
No, we're seeing him.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, it's just, there's some just beautiful sunsets on both clear days and cloudy days down there. Just very enjoyable. Here's the night traffic. You might like to enjoy that. It's very pretty at night with all the lights, but there's still traffic all the way into, usually 10 o'clock or later at night. You can see the pier. That's something else you have to get used to. There's at least 3-4 times a day you hear sirens go by.
Hear any of this on the beach?
No. It's on the street side.
Do they have that many emergencies?
Yeah, there are. We do have at least a couple of heart attacks, and of course there's some kids who have who go out on a wave runner and don't well, they don't know how to operate it properly, so we'll leave it at that. So yeah, there are a fair number of emergency vehicle calls each day. By the way, this was in February, and some of the locals told us it gets even worse in June. So you may not want to go in June and July, which would be also quite a bit warmer months also.
Was it really humid when you were there in February?
No,
No,
not at all.
In the summer, it gets really bad.
It really wasn't bad. Have any of the rest of you been to Fort Myers?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've been to Tampa. In fact, in the middle of your presentation, my boss called who's leaving and he lives in that area. So he's moved to that area. So I've met people there. My bosses live there and they can, and they, work remotely. So, but I've not been.
Well, that's a nice deal if you can work remotely. And of course, I love the sound of the ocean. I mean, it's
Beautiful.
But they were talking about how bad the traffic is and everything.
I mean, we found that we would walk whenever in fact, most of the time we would simply walk along the beach. So. Okay, I think I'm not going to go and show you the whale watch because I think I've held you here long enough. It's about an hour and a quarter. So any closing questions at all?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank
You're very
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, very, very much. I would never have been able to go except this way. Thank you.
Okay.
Did you go to Sanibel at all, Jonathan?
Yes, we did actually. The Shell Museum is on Sanibel.
Yes.
Of course, it's a long bridge over there, and on each side of it there are beaches also that you can go to. But since we had access with the resort, we didn't really stop at any of those.
Okay.
We tried to go to a couple antique shops over there and a shell shop. The antique shop was closed. The shell shop, I got this baby. I couldn't find one like this, and I wanted to have something. I like these strange creatures.
Right.
Were you close to Venice at all?
No, I'm not sure I know where Venice is, but we didn't go through it at all.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
It's about what, an hour and a half north, I think.
Okay.
Mhm.
Furthest north, I think, let me think if that's north. Well, the furthest away we went was Naples. That might have been, I don't know if that's south and east or not. I'm not real clear on the directions, but
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I love your pictures. They're
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well, thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope
very
you all
much.
have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Stay cool.
Bye.